Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
We've started a lot of podcasts with one of us having food in our mouth, so it's sort of
Snack time.
Sort of a tradition at this point.
Each our time is snack time.
And yet we mercilessly insult Tybalt for eating in the
Where do you
background.
think he learned it from?
You're right. He picks up all his bad habits from us, his parents. Okay, this is Everybody Hates Rand. Back to our roots. Eating at the beginning of the podcast. Sally scrolling through.
Sorry,
whatever.
my friend sent me a photo and I thought it was work related and it just turned out to be the fucking dedication to Midnight Sun. I was like, Brianna, what is this?
Who'd she dedicate it to?
All the readers, something,
Of course.
something, yeah.
That's only funny when Rick Riordan does it.
Yeah,
And he's like, to all the readers, you were so mad at me for that cliffhanger. Haha, fuck you.
Exactly.
I do what I want.
Yeah, I'm in charge here.
Whatever. Everybody Hates Rand, Friendly Neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I am Sally Goodger.
I'm really thrown off by the fact that we're recording on a Thursday.
No, it's been messing me up all week.
Yeah. I didn't even change it on the calendar, and that
Yeah.
messed me up too. I had to babysit my nephews yesterday.
They're very cute, Emily's nephews.
My littlest nephew is very cute. My older nephew is going through a phase.
I mean, he's 2, man.
He's 2, yeah. He's just prone to fits of drama.
just very funny.
He just sort of flings himself on surfaces like a Victorian woman fainting.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh!
You're like, you okay, bud?
And I'm like, yeah, big mood.
Yeah.
He's like,
2020, baby.
yep. All right. I'm happy to report that we're away from Nynaeve and Elaine, and then that whole zone in what I imagine as modern-day Arizona. That's just sort of like the vibe I get.
Yeah,
Not necessarily geographically, although I do also see it as sort of a wasteland.
Yeah. No, I can see that being Arizona.
Yeah.
Ish.
Cambria, weigh in. You live in Arizona. Not to give too much info on your location to the listeners.
Narrowed it down quite a bit from the whole world.
Arizona!
Arizona.
Yeah, and she has a very unique name. So, remember that scene in Umbrella Academy where they call an old woman named Olga?
Yeah. It's Olga for Olga, you idiots. Means eye for an eye.
Wrong number, have a lovely day.
Umbrella Academy season 2 is so funny.
It just has such peak levels of comedy.
Yeah. Just like the chaotic sibling interactions are extremely funny.
Yeah. It's just, I've been reading this writer doing, like, daily reviews of, like, each episode, and every time she's like, I mean, the plot is shitty, but I have to remember the show is not about the plot.
Yeah. The plot is the exact same fucking plot of the first season.
Yeah. Just
like,
chaos.
who cares?
But
Yeah.
It's like, whatever, we're seeing people grow,
Yeah.
and that's what matters, you know?
Yeah.
That's all I really want in my cold, aching heart.
Yeah. Like, Diego developed more self-awareness this season.
Yeah.
Luther became less of a dick.
Luther sort of just sidestepped from bastarddom
Yeah.
into himbodom.
I know, it was
It was very
good,
elegant.
like,
Yeah. Billy Bones really bringing it.
Thanks, Tom Hopper.
Tom Hopper bringing it. He's sort of actually recaptured his season 1 Billy Bones energy.
Yeah, exactly. They're
Sort
pretty
of
much
like
the same character.
Befuddled by all the bloodshed going on around him and like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Luther and Five in this season are like peak
They had
comedic
some
duo.
very good moments.
Because
I'm the daddy here!
Luther's just like, maybe don't do a murder, and Five is just unhinged.
Five is so unhinged.
Five is one of my favorite characters of all time.
I know, I really think he's one of the most unique and
Yeah.
interesting characters on television currently.
Yeah. Also, Aidan Gallagher, who plays him, is just, like, acting everyone under the table constantly.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He was like, Ellen Page who?
This 5'6" little 16-year-old.
He's 5'3".
He's 5'3"?
At least last time I looked at his height when we were watching it for the first time. I don't just look at people's heights, but he and Ellen Page are, like, the same size.
Yeah, he and Ellen Page are both just tiny next to their looming older siblings, who all seem
Yeah.
to be at least 6 feet tall.
Because how tall is Ellen Page? Ellen Page is 5'1", baby.
Yeah, and he's a little taller than her.
I love you, Ellen Page. That's my wife. Boogie, woogie, woogie.
Boogie, woogie, woogie. They all had very, that's my wife energy.
5'3".
Oh, Aiden.
He's so cute.
And, like, he's an ambassador to the UN, and it's just like, what's happening with him?
What a cute.
Can you imagine being that successful at the age of 16?
No, listen, I barely was 16.
Like, is he still living? Like, he must live with his parents.
Parents like, this is my son, super successful actor,
When they're, like,
ambassador to the UN.
Calling in to do their, like, actor interviews
Yeah, like are
from
his parents-
quarantine. Are his parents in the other?
God, I hope so.
How funny would it be if, you know, like, all those, like, cutesy news interviews where some child just comes barging in
Yeah.
behind the parent, if, like, his mom came in.
It's like,
behind
oh, God.
him. He was just like, I'm so sorry.
That's my mom.
That's my mother. Oh, what a rich universe we've created.
I just love him and I think the entire cast is really funny, though. I haven't watched any of their cast interviews except the Notes one that you made me watch.
The what one?
The
the
Notes
one.
app.
Yeah, and that was only...
Werewolves.
Oh, werewolves. That interview led me to believe that Cameron Britton would be in this season more, and it was very sad that he
Spoiler
wasn't.
alert.
Yeah, I guess, but...
Well, now we're just talking about the Umbrella Academy.
Now,
Sorry.
now this is an Umbrella Academy fan cast. Whatever. It's different from our Watchmen fan cast or whatever.
Oh my god, today I've been like, this is like a total sidebar, which will probably just go in the blooper reel, but I was like, after the Blue Dildo episode, I was like, to the group chat, I was like, please watch Watchmen so that I can talk to you about this.
Did you know, Devin told me this today, the Blue Dildo is named Excalibur TM.
Hang up.
He was like, I can't believe you guys didn't talk about it. And I was like, well, first of all, I was not looking. And also, I don't know what you're talking about, because Sally would definitely have noticed that if it was anywhere.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, it's actually on, like, this other... He's like, I found out about it basically on Reddit, or whatever Devin does to consume media.
Yeah, I would have noticed if someone
And I was like, that would have been a point of conversation, believe me.
But I, like, dropped the art, because I was, like, checking our Patreon, because we got 2 new patrons. Thank you, guys. And, well, We Don't Watch Outlander posted, you know, when you linked the article, and I was like, oh, I'll just drop this in the group chat.
Sure.
And everyone was like, yeah, whatever, it's just a big blue dildo. And it's like, how is no one, like...
As bewildered by it as we are?
Yeah. And Julie's like, that's just, like, the Watchmen universe. And I'm like, I get that, but this is a very big dildo.
Yeah, no one else seems as alarmed. Are we just, like, not hanging out on extremerestraints.com
I guess.
enough?
I don't know, man. I usually think of myself as, like, pretty with it.
Yeah.
But just, like, the sheer size of it, I was like...
I guess it was the length that disturbed me. And the fact that it's made out of, like, metal.
Yeah, it's just, like, the length. Like, she's holding it, and it's, like, the size of her freaking arm, man.
Yeah. It's
Whatever.
like, usually when I see a massive, has to go in the blue dildo.
Usually when I see a massive dildo.
Usually when I see a massive dildo, it's massive in terms of, like, girth.
Yeah.
And most dildos are, like, made out of silicone or some other material that's not gonna, like, fucking stab into your
I know.
intestinal wall.
Metal as, like, a material to put inside me kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, like...
Like, I know it is, like, objectively, like, body safe and stuff.
No shame, whatever you like, but...
I just... I think it was just, like, the combination. Like, if it was metal, that would have been okay. If it was big, that would have been okay. If it was, like, glowing blue, that would have been okay.
But all three
But, like,
combined,
the fact that she had to, I think, like, attach the balls to it, because it was, like...
magnetically?
I think if you look at the photos, the, like, balls are separate so it fits in the case better.
But literally, like, magnetically?
I think so.
Does that mean you could, like, be fucking this blue dildo or whatever, and it's magnetic, so you could have, like, put your keys...
You're like, I don't want to lose these. See, if you, like, look at it, it's
Stick
like...
your keys to your fucking
Yeah, she's
collarbone,
like-
because that's how far up in your pocket it would go.
She's, like, attaching them in the scene. So it's just like the holy
Those have to be magnetic.
quadrangle of fascinating dildo things.
I feel like I've learned a lot.
So anyway, but Julie was just like, whatever, and everyone just, like, continued to not have the conversation with me. And then they were just, like, talking about something else, and I was like, okay, no one is just as bewildered.
It's disappointing. We could call Devin tonight and talk to him about it.
Thanks. Devin is now my dad.
I already can't keep track of Devin's fucking biological family tree, but he also, like, goes out of his way with everyone he meets to establish some sort of familial connection.
Yeah.
He's your dad. He was my quote-unquote fiance because he was my work wife for forever. And now he's like, but we're also sister wives too, Janet. And I'm like, okay, great. But there's too many layers here.
Devin is just living his best life.
I don't get it. But I'm glad he's your dad, I guess.
It was just, like, a funny tweet.
It was a good tweet.
And, yeah, I don't know.
And I'm totally supportive of any, almost any male who wants to supplant your father.
Thanks. This is not totally related, but at the barbecue I went to, Justin, who is my friend Brianna's boyfriend, was like, Sally, what's up with you and, like, stealing people's girlfriends? And I was like, what? And he's like, you're just, like, always so nice to everyone's girlfriends. And I'm like, Justin, I'm not friends with you. I'm friends with Brianna. And, like, I like Justin. Obviously, like, we're becoming friends, but it was just, like, very funny.
What is it with you and stealing you mean establishing female friendships?
Like, I don't know if you were just like, yeah, Sally is obviously a queer person. So
yeah, I don't know if you can, like, qualify stealing someone's girlfriend unless you're actively fucking someone's girlfriend.
I'm sure he, like, meant it as a joke, and I'm not, like, portraying the conversation accurately because I was tired, but I was just like, I don't know, man. It's me and your girlfriends. I get all of them, I guess.
Yeah, Devin also accuses you of stealing his.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
Apparently it's about me and Janet.
Did I steal you away from Devin?
Apparently you did. I literally texted him and was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, pal, we're work wives as a joke. He's like, I can't. I see it all in shades of black and white, I guess.
You're like, Devin, it wouldn't have worked out with us.
I'm like,
for
Devin, it would never have worked between us.
Well.
And I'm pretty sure Janet's happy where she's at, so.
Yeah, I mean, Devin probably makes more money than I do, so Janet's got that going for her. And he's very sweet and lovely.
He's very nice to Janet.
Yeah,
he's very nice to most people. But
especially to Janet, which you should always be very nice to your significant other.
Yeah, it's nice to watch a functional couple.
Okay, this episode is already deeply none of this is actually going to be.
Let's see how much of the fucking siege on Kyrian we can slam into the next 30 minutes.
Okay, baby, lay it on me.
Okay, so
talk war to me.
Talk war to me. Sometimes I feel like Tybalt's watching me.
Sometimes I'll just be like, get the impulse to know where I like need to know where he is.
Yeah, I'm just like, where'd he go? Could be anywhere. Okay. We left Nynaeve and Elaine. I said that already. We're now going to be alternating between Rand and Matt's points of view for the next 6 chapters, I think.
So.
So 3 weeks in EHR time.
The only calendar that matters.
The only calendar that matters. Which is interesting because there are other point of view characters within this, but we are sticking with Rand and Matt, partly because they're the most central characters to what's going on, but also sort of tellingly because it's a very, like, on-the-ground, arms to arms, battle. And so that sort of signifies it as the quote-unquote men's realm. When the gals get violent, it's usually from a safe distance, as we will literally see Edwin and Avienda, like, hurling firebolts into the
lightning bolt
enemy armies.
Which is upsetting.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that war crimes are being committed here.
But it starts with Rand as he is surveying the encampment. He's essentially looking at, like, the forces brought by Tyr, which also includes Kyrianan forces. And he's noting something that will be very important to Matt and Matt's construction of the band, which is that not only is there a line between nationalities of Kyrian and Tyr, who are famously basically no one in the western half of this continent gets along. Like,
Yeah.
Kyrian hates Andor, Kyrian hates Tyr, Tyr hates Ilion.
It's like the England versus France versus Spain versus
Yeah.
Portugal.
It's very classic, like, 1400s fucking
Yeah.
monarchs. So there's a division between nationalities, but also a difference between infantry and cavalry, which sort of implied is also the difference between nobility and peasantry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's made a little bit more explicit as we get into it, but it's also like, there are noble people leading the infantry.
Yeah.
Rand notes that as well, but they're generally lower nobility.
Mm-hmm.
Is Talmany's part of the infantry or the cavalry?
I can't remember.
I want to say infantry because he's sensible, and that's sort of how we're led to believe it. But who knows? Rand is, of course, disappointed in these divisions, but has no idea how to go about mending them. Little does he know, all he will have to do is hurl Matt
It's like, I got it.
like a firework into them.
And all the soldiers are like, that's my boy.
All the soldiers are like, I'm in gay love with this man, which means I will give up all, the whole thing about, with the rise of the Dragon Reborn, all boundaries are broken. With the rise of Matt Cathon, all sexualities are erased.
Yeah, they're like, it's just Matt Cathon, baby. I don't have a nationality.
It's tough
I don't
to
have a
be your
position.
god.
I'm just do what Matt tells me to, because he's
I am just Matt's boy.
Yeah.
Matt's boy number 127 or whatever.
Oh, that's my name.
No, we're veering back into territory. Hard left turn. But Rand also has to deal with the leadership, like the delegates of leadership from these men. So we're introduced to a guy named Weramon, who is the consummate idiot politician / military man.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to talk. He just wants to make himself seem important. And literally everyone around him is like, you're an idiot. Which is a realistic depiction of a man in leadership. The only unrealistic thing about Wheel of Time is that it's not 50% of the people we're seeing, where Mon is like this exception to the rule. He's also tragically going to like be around for a while. For the rest of the series, essentially. Just sort of there to annoy Rand and to contrast with the Ale, who are so competent.
Yeah.
And then there's Weramon, who's like, I'm gonna do this stupid thing. Like, he's like, we should just be able to, like, charge the Shadow, and we can take them. We don't even need your Ale. It can just be us, these, I think, as it's counted, like, 3,000 dudes.
Yeah, and Rand's like,
there are 160,000 of the Shadow. And Weramon's like, no problem, we have horses. And he's like, it's like you haven't even looked to your left or to your right at the very tall Ale who are all around you.
Yeah.
So incredibly competent, good at camouflage, good at everything they do.
Yeah.
It's like you, a little league soccer team taking on the Olympic soccer, the women's Olympic soccer team. Because men suck.
Well,
the men's team sucks.
Well, I'm just stuck with the generalization.
But Rand's sort of dealing with that, and he goes to this tower that has been erected. The higher his tower, the more his power grows. Apparently they're 5 miles outside of Kyrian, and I have literally no clue how telescopes work. I assume 5 miles is a reasonable amount of ground to cover with a rudimentary telescope.
I guess we talked a big game last week about doing research on telescopes, but this week just got a little frazzled. So maybe we'll get there as we get into the actual battle. But I think that would be okay, especially with like the angle.
Yeah, because they're high up, and Rand talking to the guy who created the telescope, Kin Tovir, who is just a glass maker, essentially.
Yeah, they call him a lens maker, which I think is interesting, because it does, like, the, like, ability to make lenses does suggest, like, quite advanced glass blowing in Kyrian.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because we don't really see any characters wearing spectacles.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, isn't realistic. Most of the population nowadays wears spectacles.
Yeah, I mean, Matt is probably blind as a
it would explain a lot. Everything's just sort of blurry to him, and he's
like,
He's like, I'm drunk 100% of the time, and it's like, he just can't see.
He just needs glasses.
He just needs glasses. God, he'd look cute with glasses.
He would look, with his, like, hat. When he gets his outfit on these chapters, it's so cute. He's like, my
he
yellow
gets his-
scarf,
he
my
gets his
green
famous
coat.
hat. He
my
gets
hat.
his famous, green coat and everything on.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Good for him.
Imagine he just popped on some glasses.
Just like
Some sunglasses. He had the ones you, like, flip up into.
or transition lenses.
Yeah, so it is very interesting to see, like, glass blowing utilized in this way. Whereas, like, they've talked in the past about how, like, mirrors are not glass mirrors, they're, like, metal mirrors. And you don't, like, oftentimes in our, like, books, the graffiti books all, like, circle, like, various bird-related words into a bird fact, or glass-related words into a glass fact, because I've, worked with those two things. And glass is very hard to find in the Wheel of Time. It's, like, very hard. It's not very often mentioned. You mostly get, like, ceramics and other stoneware rather than, like, stoneware or metalware rather than, like, glass. So it's very interesting to just, like, have this very advanced glass making sort of spring up for the purpose of telescopes.
Yeah, we're seeing, here we see another innovation, although it's less explained to us, in that as Rand's looking through the telescope, he and some of the Ale clan chiefs, he, like, finds the hill that Couladin and a few of his officers are standing on, which, great coincidence. And he sees a couple of these guys get, like, taken down by a spear, and he's like, oh my god, did someone, like, sneak behind enemy lines? But he realizes from the trajectory that the spear is coming from the walls of Kyrian, which is way too far away for anyone to throw a spear. So he's like, what's going on? And I think he'll essentially meet the person responsible who's, like, building, giant crossbows. Yeah. So we have these innovations springing up, partly in direct response to Rand. Rand goes to Kintovir and says, hey, do you think you could make a glass that could see this far, a telescope, as opposed to a little looking glass, I guess.
Also, where is he making them? Because in order to blow glass, you need a furnace that will burn at,
yeah, they're talking about how these are all refugees, so I don't know.
It's like, where are your glass furnaces burning, like, a lot of silica at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit and then cooling them appropriately?
They just built one for the two telescopes.
I guess Rand could just, like, burn it for him.
He's like, oh, you need fire? I can
the magic.
I can do that, yeah.
Not to be like, everything in the fantasy world has to work the way real world stuff does. I don't mean to be that obnoxious asshole, but...
No, it is kind of funny to point out, though.
Yeah.
Like, how?
How are they building... They're just keeping, like, the refugees are doing it, and it's
you can't be like, glass as a technology complicated enough that we're not really using glass mirrors.
Yeah.
Except in very, like, expensive, luxurious places, and also be like, a random refugee man who Rand found on the curb can casually make a telescope.
Yeah.
Those two things just don't go together.
It's very funny. It's just a funny Wheel of Time thing.
But anyway, this is either happening directly because of Rand's influence or just sort of adjacent to him.
Yeah.
And this is a theme that will be played into a lot with Rand, especially, is the idea that there is technology springing up. And we see that both magically in terms of things like traveling and other weaves that were thought to be lost but are coming back, or that are really new. And so that part of it I think is kind of expected because we've heard enough prophecies about, like, old things becoming new and whatever, and we've seen Min's talent for seeing the future and other various talents springing up. So we expect all these sort of fantasy iterations of it, but to have it here in, like, layman's terms of, like, we have people literally by the end of the Wheel of Time series inventing rudimentary cars.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's like,
yeah, that's interesting.
It's really interesting to watch technology develop alongside magic. The only sad part is that we don't get more of it,
Yeah.
Because so many of our characters are directly entrenched in the magical world rather than...
Yeah.
The real world, as it feels. Which is something you could have done with Min, I would argue. But,
Que sera, sera.
Que sera, sera. You live and you learn.
You know what the French say?
Mikasa et Sukasa.
Means that's life.
Rand mentions Min here. He says he does his classic Elaine and Avienda are so complicated. Min's the only woman who I've ever understood, which is not only a direct contradiction to every time he's interacted with Min on screen up until this point and every time after this point, but it's such like a clear way of framing Min in this like she's understandable because she's a tomboy, because she's willing to meet Rand on his turf, you know, of masculinity. She's the consummate cool girl.
Yeah, she's not like the other girls.
She's not like the other girls. She likes football and belching and...
Yeah, she wears a hockey jersey to bed.
She wears a hockey jersey to bed, but she still looks very sexy in it.
Yeah, because she only eats cheeseburgers, but still weighs 80 pounds.
Exactly.
That's a very realistic depiction of a human woman.
Right. Oh my god.
She's Robin Scherbatsky from How I Met Your Mother.
Ugh. God, I wish I could get her out of my head. I wish I could get that whole show out of my head. I wish I could just scrub the parts of my brain that show was on.
Yeah.
What a horrifying expenditure of brain capacity.
Yeah, I know, what a time that we all lived through. How I Met Your Mother.
We also have sort of on the side here, Edwene growing a little bit, coming into her own. Rand, I guess, asked her if she, since she has not taken the oaths that would prevent her from using her magic powers as a weapon of war, if she'd participate, and she, was like, I have to think about it for 3 days, and now is like, yeah, I'll do it, I can. And he just makes some comment about how he thinks Moiraine is looking at him, but he turns around and it's Edwene, and he's just like, oh, she's learning the ways of the mystic woman.
Yeah.
Which is to say, I guess, having better control of your facial expressions.
I know, what?
Who's to say? But Rand looks through these telescopes, and I can't even remember how that chapter ends, really. Some, grim thing about...
Oh, yeah, Rand's like, I'll do what I have to do to kill Couladin or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know. But then we switch over to Baby Boy.
Mat Cathon, staring at the ceiling of his little tent and thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
As he almost always is.
Yeah.
In books 3, 4, and 5. A little bit in 6. Matt is like, I have noticed some progression in my capacity to think about leaving Rand.
Yeah.
So I think it's time that I do that. And of course, the pattern, quote unquote, is no longer holding him back because it needs Matt to leave so that he can actually get embroiled in the battle to come. Mm-hmm. But I'm fascinated by the idea that rather than feeling tugged in a different direction, that he has to follow, he's on a leash, Matt is just, suddenly let loose and immediately runs in the direction that he's supposed to go. Yeah. Just sort of coincidentally. I don't know why, I just find Matt's connection to all of it more interesting than I find Rand's or Perrin's.
Yeah, it's just that idea of rather than, the pattern lassoing Rand and Perrin and pulling them where they need to go, it's just, we had to keep Matt here, or else he'd do it too early.
Yeah.
And now we're just going to free him, and then he can be an agent of chaos. Completely unhinged.
So unhinged. Matt has this whole monologue about how, Ta'Veren and the stories are always doing these cool things. He's like, they just, get people to do what they want, which we literally see Rand do in this book, and Perrin do in later books. He's like, they just get women to fall for them and, change the tides of battle or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, baby.
You do all of those things.
You do those things.
That's very funny.
He's like, the only thing I've noticed is that I have supernatural luck powers. And I'm like, is that not enough for you? Waking up with the ability to always win every game you play. He says something about, gold falling into their pockets.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's you, dumbass.
I'm like, stories change things a little bit, but give it 10 years and you'll be the idiot who just found gold. So much of it.
Matt's, self-awareness in this chapter, and in general, is just kind of
a little
zero.
murky. Oh, he's such a funny character.
Yeah.
But he's like, okay, I'm really doing it this time. I'm gonna go tell Rand that I'm breaking up with him. God, he's also like, I'm worried about Rand, but, you know.
I'm not his nursemaid.
I'm not his nursemaid. Rand also, in the chapter prior, was like, I'm a little bit worried about him. That's his own problem.
It's like,
But that's the sad regression of their relationship, is they start to think of each other as problems to be solved rather than
friends.
So Matt ventures to Rand's command tent, and sadly Rand is not in there. It's just Asmodine playing a sad melody on his harp, and Matt's like, ugh.
It's like, I hate this motherfucker.
It's like, ugh, he is such a fucking bummer. And Asmodine's like, I'm right here. I can hear you. Stop talking to yourself. But Matt's sort of just inspecting the map because he has nothing else. It's like the classic, I'm not going to look at Jason, not JL. I'm going to look at the maps.
Yeah.
And then Lan comes in and is like, well, what do you think? And Matt is trying to not get pulled into this conversation. He's like, I'm just here for Rand. But eventually Lan is like, well, should we just, like, you know, hammer them with our forces since we have the greater numbers? And Matt goes on this monologue about how stupid that would be, going so far as to, like, fucking quote Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
I don't know if he does that in his monologue or in his internal monologue, but
yeah,
the whole bit about know thy enemy and also know thy terrain, and how closely related those two are. But
because the terrain is your enemy, get it? Or the enemy is your terrain. I don't know. Anyway. Words. What are they? This dumbass doesn't know.
But Matt essentially is like, that won't work, and he's using terminology about, like, siege weapons. He says something about miners. Later, Rand is like, what do you need miners for? And it's like, to dig, stupid. To dig under the wall. How is that not 2 + 2 for you?
Rand is just actually very funny at the end of this chapter because he's like, I have no idea the fuck anyone's talking about all the time. I just sort of, like, nod.
I just sort of, like, let them do it.
Yeah.
I know that Ruark knows what he's doing, so I'm just letting Ruark handle it.
Yeah. It's like, why would you need miners? There's no mines around here.
What? Maybe you only need them in sieges. And it's like, I mean, really, you mostly do. But I learned about miners from fucking Redwall.
I mean, I didn't know you use miners to dig under the wall. I just assumed it was, like, Matt would know. So I was like, sure, I trust him.
In Redwall, it's, like, literally siege warfare, because they all get, like, penned up in their abbey with all the horde of rat forces outside the gates.
That's scary.
And there's literally just, like, episodic them trying different forms of siege warfare to get inside, including, like, digging under the walls, climbing over the walls, building, like, ladder systems to go over the walls. So that explains a lot about me as a person, I think.
Yeah. Just always looking for that tactical advantage, baby.
No, just knowing what fucking miners are used for, I guess.
No, I think it's very good. I was going to ask you.
Miners with an O.
They just need a lot of babies.
Just need a lot of under 18s.
Yeah.
Get out there.
Bring me the 12-year-olds. They'll know how to do this.
They're smaller so they can dig faster.
It's so upsetting.
Closer to the ground.
I do not like this conversation. It's like that scene in Galaxy Quest. Miners, not miners. Have you ever seen Galaxy Quest?
I've seen Galaxy Quest, but I don't know it well enough to quote, though, really.
There's this scene where there's, like, aliens who are mining. And someone's like, oh, they're miners. And they're like, one's like, they don't look that young. It's just a very funny movie.
Galaxy Quest is a very...
Yeah.
Alan Rickman was at his peak in that film. Like,
Tony
comedic.
Shalhoub is also very funny in that movie.
Tony Shalhoub.
Everyone is very funny in that movie.
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
God, is that Dennis Quaid in it?
It's Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. For some reason, they're like
they
the
look
same
the
person in my head.
It's an older white dude in Hollywood.
Whatever. So Matt lays out this whole plan, just sort of absent-mindedly the whole time. He's thinking, I wish Rand would come in here.
Yeah, so I could fucking break up with him.
And finally, he cuts off and sort of realizes, or like, Asmodee just stops playing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a string breaking comedically, you know. And Matt looks up and is like, oh, fuck.
Shit, goddammit.
He's like, ooh, sort of let that get away from me.
Yeah.
and stands up to leave, and Rand is just standing there with his, like, fucking scepter cradled.
He's so stupid with that dumb scepter.
He's so whack. And Matt's like, well, I have to go. And Rand's like, okay. And Matt's like, don't try and stop me. And Rand's like, I'm not going to. You're free to go. Where are you going to go? And Matt's like, south? What's happening here? This wasn't the rehearsal. This wasn't the conversation I rehearsed last night. But they sort of awkwardly are like, okay, well, see you when I see ya. Mm-hmm. And Matt's like, okay, goodbye, and leaves. He's got a plan to leave the following day rather than that afternoon and just get caught by a bunch of scouts, I guess. I don't know why he goes south. Frankly,
I think he's just like, there's nothing I want to see north.
I mean,
I think that's what he says.
It's like, you want to get as far away from battle as possible, but then you take the long route. It's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting because Matt talks about how little interest he has in being in a battle here, but simultaneously, almost, he talks about how thrilling it is to plan battles.
Yeah.
Like, we're seeing Matt's memories that he's been fed that are just memories, you know? They're objective. They're like a new set of data. Mm-hmm. And Matt is already molding them to his personality, which is like, oh, battle is like gambling. Like, his memories aren't telling him that. That's the spin he's putting on them.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we have Matt say, I don't want to be anywhere near a place where I could essentially die. Which, you know, Matt is going to very intelligently throughout most of the series be like, I'm the commander. I'm going to stay back here because if I die, then everything goes to pot. Get it? Sort of like basic fucking tactics. But then for some godforsaken reason, Brandon Sanderson, in the last few books, he's like, I need to be in the battle to, like, get a feel for it. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, this is a character point that's established as early as book 4. He can find planning battles thrilling. Yeah. He doesn't need to be, like, get literal human blood on him. Yeah. To feel alive.
Shocking, men, I know.
So it's just a minor complaint I have. But Matt leaves, and we immediately switch over to Rand, who's like, was he like that the entire time? I only caught the end of it. And Land's like, yeah, he just, given 30 seconds, laid out the same plan that it took out all our guys, you know, a day or so to plan. Yeah. And Rand's like, huh.
Maybe I shouldn't have let him go.
Rand's like, ooh, okay. And he knows that Matt got this from the doorway. Land doesn't know that, and Rand doesn't explain it to him or to Asmodee. He's just like, all right, well, I guess I will use this in the future. It's like, cool way to talk about your friends. Seriously. Which he, you know, is self-aware of, but doesn't stop him. Yeah. Then he sort of gathers in all the clan chiefs and Weremon and his guys, and there's some, you know, political maneuvering before they're like, all right, let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Start planning, and yeah, like you said, Raina's like, I have no fucking clue what's going on here 100% of the time. I'm just here to, like, sort of nod and look solemn. Yeah. Be like, yeah, do that. And they're just like, okay, great.
And Rourke's like, this is my idiot son, Randall Thor.
This is my dumb. You're my dad.
Boogie, woogie,
woogie. So those are the chapters.
Those are the chapters. We're getting set up for the big fighty.
Yeah, the next chapters are the big battle, and then the chapters after that are the aftermath of it. So, lots of switching between Rand and Matt, as we have Rand kind of from a distance surveying the battle, at least initially, and Matt, like, down on the ground, getting caught up in it.
Accidentally becoming the leader of the army.
Accidentally leading the entire army. No big deal, and killing Couladin is just like, whatever.
And Rand's like, Matt did what?
Rand's like, what?
You killed Couladin? What, like it's hard?
What, like it's hard?
Ugh. Plus, Matt also meets his boyfriend, Dalmines.
Oh my god. He meets a lot of his, like, boyfriend-adjacent dudes who are just like, hello, we are the Band of the Red Hand. Most of us will die brutally in the next few books. And Matt's like, great. Except you, Dalmines.
That's my boo.
Always got you, babe.
That's my husband.
My tiny gay Frenchman. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
It's like delightful to read for once.
Yeah.
Even if, or at least I found it so.
Yeah. Like Rand, in moments like this where Rand is just like legitimately doing his best and admitting where he's at fault and doing interesting things with like one of the more interesting things about Rand is his like patronage of the like college in Kyrian and
that's
like
awesome.
trying to like set up a positive legacy. So like we're seeing all like the best parts of Randolph 4 just being sort of like
streamlined in the
Yeah.
storyline.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Rand and it's just playing back to this very early character trait of Rand's, his like curiosity and desire for knowledge that usually had him reading books. And it's just sad because it gets lost for a while in his post-Vietnam sojourn across the continent. And now it's coming into play again in like a little sort of changed way, but it's nice to see it reemerge.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we're seeing Matt come into his own in the ways that the narrative has been setting him up to come into his own.
Like we're finally getting Matt's kind of the climax of Matt's beginning.
Yeah, we're starting to get payoff,
Yeah.
which is really rewarding. Especially in a fantasy series as big as this one, you really want, like, the things that you've been seeing to come back into play in good and engaging and rewarding ways. Not necessarily in unpredictable ways, the way current media sort of wants you to think, but just in, like...
Yeah, it's not always bad to know what's coming, you know?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah,
Like-
not everything has to be a twisty.
This battle is directly related to the last battle. Like, Rand says something about how all the refugees are just like, well, it's the last battle. I guess it's happening now.
Rand's like, no.
And Rand's like, God, I wish. Get it over with. And so having Matt sort of stumble into this leadership position, of course, sets him up to be the general commander in the last battle. And that doesn't mean that it's not satisfying. It means that it's deeply satisfying.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. It's like a story almost setting up like its own archetypes.
Yeah.
Like Matt is, when he goes into the last battle, is replaying the groove of this battle and all of the other battles that he's been in. And it's just nice to watch characters who know what they're doing do things that they're good at. Like, it's deeply satisfying.
It's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's why, like, Nynaeve healing someone never gets fucking old.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck yeah.
Because I'm like,
It's the Surgeon General.
yeah, girl, it's the Surgeon General of the United States.
Yeah.
But that's that. And yeah, like we said, we'll be back next week. Sorry for the chaotic episode, and sorry if I did keep that giant blue dildo talk in here. If I did,
You're welcome.
your hashtag no regrets.
Would it be an episode of EHR if we didn't have some sort of weird sexual adjacent sidebar?
It absolutely would not, and we didn't have much chance to do that
Yeah.
this time.
So we have to build our own chances.
Thanks for listening. Catch us on social media. Catch us on Fridays as we are streaming some sort of video game. That is a little bit unclear right now.
Check us out on Patreon if you want more. If we did keep the giant blue dildo conversation in there, that's just a little nugget, a little preview of our We Don't Watch Outlander Watchmen series.
Yep, that's happening.
It's not all about giant blue dildos, but maybe it should be.
Arguably. Watchmen is like, I have this profound thesis about how superheroes and, like, law enforcement are really just people, and therefore they can't actually be trusted to enact the law because all humans are fallible, and we're like, make it about the giant blue dildo.
Listen, humans have worms for brains, so
yeah,
what do they expect?
No regrets. Again. Alright, do you have a sign-off?
Yes. I got volunteered to dog sit for my mom's neighbors, which I was like, how did this even happen? I do not live at this house
how does
anymore.
it come into
I
conversation?
have no idea. But I think it's like my mom will probably do a lot of it because she lives next door to them, but my mom just has like a very busy job, so she's like, we'll just bring Sally in case anything happens. But it's like, these people, I found out, aren't even going on vacation until next Thursday. So, like, a week plus in advance, they were like, please come and we'll teach you about our dog. And, like, not that I'm Snow White or anything, but I'm a person who, like, grew up around animals, and I know how to interact with animals, so, like, animals aren't...
You remember how your mom made me come up to learn how to care for your dog a full week before you guys left?
Oh my god, you're right. They're the same people.
Yeah, this is how it happened.
So, like, I went up on Tuesday, and they made me come and meet their dog, and me and the dog were, like, fine. Instant
Great
BFFs.
friends, yeah.
They're
Easy.
like, this is how you feed her. You put food in the bowl. And I was like, cool. They're like, there's a dog door, so she'll go outside. I'm like, great, why am I even watching this dog? And then I had to go up yesterday because on Tuesday, one of the people was home. On yesterday, the other person was home. And now I have to come while they were both home and, like, open the door and pretend that they are not there just in case the dog, like, attacks me if I'm a stranger in their home.
How big is this dog?
It's like... literally a third the size of Duke.
Oh my god,
like
that's a small dog.
Yeah, this dog does not frighten me in the slightest.
The amount of preparation they're doing, whereas my family leaves Otis to, whoever has 3 brain cells.
Anyway, I'm just like, I have also 3 brain cells, so I can take care of a dog. So I have to go up there tonight and pretend to, like, break into these people's house or whatever.
Stage a break-in.
Be like, is Greta gonna eat you? And I'm like, no. If she does, I'll be like, put one foot out and she'll be like, okay, sorry.
Maybe they're really testing their alarm system. They just haven't told you.
Sorry, that was kind of a long sign off. It's just been, like, a weird part of my week.
Whatever, man. I'm just doing it,
Anyway, don't do a war crime.
And that's it.
That's it.
Be slutty, don't do war crimes.
Be slutty, don't do war crimes.
Bye-bye.
The manifesto.